Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to the NSQ Ref Clinic that I'm putting on. My name is Gavin. I'm host of the Northside Polo podcast and avid player here in Northsides. And I just wanted to take some time today to go over some rules that we have and to hopefully instill some confidence in you, the viewer, to ref some games at your local tournaments coming up, whether that's the Northside Qualifier or another tournament that might be coming up. So, before we get started, I just want to make sure you're aware this is not an exhaustive kind of reffing breakdown. We're not going to even hit every rule that exists. This is for people that have never reffed a game before. They just want to know what they're doing as they step up to that table and get that whistle in their hand so they can feel confident making some of the calls. And if they want to dive deeper into it, they can go read the rule book. So we're going to discuss, what the role of the ref is, how to physically make calls, like what's that process, and then we're going to dive into some rules with some video clips so we can analyze and take a look at what some of these penalties actually look like and what infractions we're looking to call. We'll start with the role of the referee. And if you're, a beginner, someone who's never reffed a game before, the role's pretty simple, right? You're there to call obvious fouls that you see um, in a polite way. And that's a big thing, right? The player is going to be really emotionally involved. They're in a stressful game. It may be getting a little rough out there. We got to be that calm voice. We're trying to maintain a safe playing environment. And that's the key thing here. Oftentimes in games, sometimes if it is getting a little chip, we might have to stop the game and call the captains over and just settle things down and get started. We have to be that source of calmness in the game if we are the ref. It's not an easy thing to do, but you know what? Just taking that 10-second breather, say, hey guys, we're playing a game of bike polo. Let's just calm it down. We want to make our decisions as decisively as we can. Sometimes in bike polo, you're going to see that a call is pretty 50-50. We don't actually know what the foul is, right? Sometimes we got to make a call. And if we're 70% sure, we make that call. Sometimes we let it play on. It is what it is. Everyone is going to make mistakes when they're doing this. And as we ref more and more, we're going to get better and better at it. But don't beat yourself up if you make a bad call, because if you watch any bike polo videos, you'll see tons of bad calls, even from the most experienced refs. So calling a penalty, okay? If we want to call a penalty, we do that by blowing our whistle and calling that penalty. But what happens sometimes is something called advantage. And the reason advantage exists is so that if a team is fouled, well, they're in a position that's really advantageous to them. And they're the victims of this foul, right? It was committed towards them. We don't blow the play dead because that's neutralizing the advantage they've gained in the play. They should be able to use that advantage to go score a goal. So if a team is in possession of the ball and they are fouled by the other team, what the ref will do is they'll raise their hand and yell advantage, followed by the team name or the color of the shirt that was kind of the victim in that altercation, right? The team that has that ball. And they'll remain in advantage. The play will continue until the other team gains control of the ball. And once they've gained control of it, the ref will blow the play dead and then we'll assess that penalty. So there are a few ways that advantage might end. So one is possession is gained by the other team. So the team that committed the infraction. The ball goes out of play. We've all seen that. Maybe it bounces off a goalie's wheel and bounces out of play. Or the team with possession fouls their opponents. That can happen sometimes too. And then you have offsetting penalties, one for each team in the advantage situation. The team that has possession of the ball that was fouled goes behind their own goal line. So this is an interesting thing, right? Because sometimes what we used to see in advantage was a team would get the ball and they would go behind their own net, wait, calm down, and then come back out. It really slowed down the game, right? So now when we have the ball and its advantage, we can't take it even behind the goal line extended on either side of the net, anywhere behind their net without the ball. And that's our own net if we have the ball, not the opponent's net. If you're trying to score on them, you can take it into their zone and bring it around their net. That's fine. So those are some interesting things to think about because it's very important that advantages end in when it's supposed to end. Let's continue on here. So to review, when you see a foul, if the team that was fouled has the ball, raise your hand, call advantage, and don't blow the whistle until the other team gets the ball, it goes out of bounds, or the team with the ball goes behind their own net. Sound good? Okay. I'm going to show you guys an example of an advantage play. We're going to watch here is Bruce, this man here in the tie-dye, is going to foul Luca, this person here in the tan pants, and call me daddy. He's going to T-bone him, and call me daddy's still going to have the ball. So the ref's going to call advantage, and the play is going to continue. So let's watch that. Here comes Bruce. Luca has the ball. T-bone happens. But Will from Call Me Daddy gets the ball right away. Ref raises his hand, calls advantage. Play continues. And ref scores. Will scores the ball. So advantage is over. In fact, the penalty is neutralized because Will scored the ball, and this is just a minor penalty. Perfect use of advantage here. Foul occurs. Call Me Daddy continues to have the ball. Ref yells advantage, raises their hand, and play continues until play stopped because of the goal. Let's continue on. So there are different types of penalties now. They are a ball turnover penalty, a minor penalty, a major penalty, and a personal misconduct. And we'll get into those later. But it's up to the ref to make sure they assess the severity of penalty. They need to make sure that the advantage gained from that infraction is nullified, right? So determine the level of penalty necessary. We got to look at the area of the court where the infraction occurred. So if it's really close to the opponent's net, or their net when it's almost a scoring opportunity, that's going to make the penalty worse, right? It's going to increase the level of severity. The next one is, was the player who was fouled on a breakaway? That's really important because of penalty shots that come in now in the new rules, right? So if a player's on a breakaway and they have a clear scoring opportunity and they're fouled from behind, it really should be a penalty shot that's assessed. That's a very serious penalty, right? That's a great scoring opportunity, a penalty shot. The next factor we're going to look for is the speed and force and the potential danger of that penalty. If players are playing more reckless, they need to have some more severe penalties assessed to them because the risk of danger is higher. And remember, a ref's role is to maintain a safe playing field. Also, the last one here is the relevance of the infraction in the course of fair play, impact of the infraction on the outcome of the game. If it's a deciding factor in the game, this penalty, they get a massive advantage. It's impacted the game in a big way. We need to be able to assess a strict penalty for that, right? An example could be maybe they foul someone, they injure them so badly they can't play anymore. Like that's pretty serious. That's going to impact the game in a big way. Or it stops someone from scoring a goal. Big impact on the game. So this penalty needs to be more severe. And we'll move to the next one here. So here are the types of penalties again. First one we have here is a ball turnover penalty. And that's the one you see most oftenly at tournaments in the past, right? Stop the play, the other team gets possession of the ball, and we continue again. Now, something the new rule said is called penalty escalation. And so, as an individual player racks up penalties against themselves, they get worse and worse and worse as time goes on. The penalty they have to serve gets more severe. So, in a squad game, like it will be at Northside Qualifier, each player gets one ball turnover penalty per game. Everything after that is assessed as a minor penalty, unless it's kind of incidental, right? So a minor penalty, um, if it was to be originally, would be an infraction that prevents a clear scoring opportunity or significant advantage to the fouled team. So it's a serious penalty, right? And that's a 45-second 2-on-3 or a 1-on-3 if there's already a 2-on-3 happening. So they have to sit in the penalty box for 45 seconds. A major penalty is an infraction a referee deems to be excessively dangerous or reckless in nature. So it could also be that a player was already assessed a minor penalty for a very similar infraction. So if they've done the same thing a second time after you've already called a minor on them, it becomes a major. And that's 2 minutes in the penalty box, which is pretty significant in a game of bike polo, right? A 2-on-3 or a 1-on, like that's a big penalty. And the last one is a personal misconduct issue. And that is when a player is removed from the game. So that could be verbal abuse or physical aggression that's occurred, or it could be just, fouling out because they've assessed too many things. And the last one here we have is the penalty shot. So we talked about that a bit already, but an infraction that affects a player in possession of the ball who has a clear path to the goal and is being defended by an opponent in the crease. So the goalie, right? If there's only the goalie between them and the net and they get fouled, we could assess a penalty shot. So a new thing this year is the point system. So every type of penalty is worth so many kind of penalty points. And so each player in a game that is longer than 25 minutes has 4 points. And once they hit that fourth point, they've fouled out of the game. So a minor penalty is worth 1 point. A major penalty is worth 2 points. So you could get 2 minors and then a major and be out. You could get 1 minor and then 2 majors and be out. You could just get 2 majors and be out, right? So it's very strict these days, especially for squad, how many points you can get. And that can be really confusing to track if you're a referee. But NAH has provided us with this sheet here, which makes it a lot easier. So you'll have your timekeeper next to you if you're refereeing a game, and their role is to keep the correct time on the stopwatch there, but they're also going to be filling out this sheet as time goes on. So as you can see, it tracks each player, and then it tracks the major penalties and minor penalties it has. And it even has a reminder text down here of how many points each player has, what types of penalties there are, and how many points are allotted for them. So that's a very helpful tool that we'll have at the Northside Qualifier to assist timekeepers and refs in keeping track of how many penalty points are dished out and how that's working. So now we're actually going to get into different types of penalties that exist, and I'm just going to go a little refresh over some rules, right? The first one is the illegal substitution, and this is only relevant in squad matches, but it's when a player is exiting the court and they don't do it correctly, right? So it could be that both players, the one that's exiting the court and the one that is coming onto the court, are both there at the same time and they interfere with play in some way or the ball touches one of them. That's too many people on the court, right? So that's an illegal substitution. So we have to be keeping mindful of that, right? So you're actually only supposed to enter the court when you're within 10, when your person who's subbing off is within 10 feet of the bench. So if my friends dabbed, my teammates dabbed way in the far side of the court, they have to come to the bench before I can sub on. I can't just sub on and then say, hey, get off, get off, get off. They need to actually be within 10 feet. So that's another one of those things. But definitely keep an eye on those substitutions. That's a penalty we see sometimes. The next one is the crease violation. So only one defensive player, the goalie, is allowed to be within the crease prior to the ball entering for more than 3 seconds. So we see that sometimes teams really turtle up and they might have 2 players within the crease kind of playing goalie and second goalie. That second goalie has to be on the outside of the crease because if they're in the crease for more than 3 seconds and the ball isn't in there, it's a crease violation. So that's something to keep in mind too. And we're going to have some creases drawn up. Next, we have bike handling penalties. And I'm going to get to some of the video clips soon because those I find really help in helping us imagine these things a little better. But the next one is tail whipping, also called whale tail. So, tail whip penalty is assessed when a player initiates contact with the opponent by skidding or pivoting either wheel into their bike, into their opponent of their bike into their opponent laterally or rotationally. So if someone's wheelie turning, they're fishtailing by skidding their rear wheel out, or they're endo pivoting and they slap another player with it in the air, with their wheel in the air or their wheel skidding across the ground, that's a tail whipping penalty. You have to be in control of your bike. You can't be smacking other people with it. So be careful with your pivots and skids. Keep an eye out for that. Next, we have toppling. And toppling is one of those ones that can be a bit confusing sometimes. So let's take a look at this. We're going to watch a little play too to make sure we understand. A toppling penalty is assessed when a player causes an opponent to dab or crash during action in which they dab before or after the opponent with whom they make contact. So basically, if you're falling and you dab and you fall on someone and make them dab, or you're falling and you fall on them and then they dab and then you dab, that's a toppling penalty, right? A place we see this often is like someone goes to lay a check on someone and they push so hard into the check that they actually not only hit their opponent off their bike, but they also hit themselves off their own bike because they're leaning so far over. So these are both toppling. So we're going to watch this clip here. And the person who actually topples is going to be Bruce again in the tie-dye shirt. He topples onto, I believe it is lefty Will, and it all kind of happens in the crease. So keep an eye on that. Lefty Will comes in, passes to Polo, passes it back to Will. Bruce loses his balance, falls over, and knocks Will over. And we're going to watch that one more time so you can see it again. This time I might put in slow motion. Okay, and here we go. So Will has the ball, passes it. Watch Bruce. He's going to hop, lose his balance, lean over, and push Will down. And here it comes. He pushes him down, and in the force of doing so, makes himself dab. That's textbook toppling right there. So keep an eye out for that. Basically, if someone falls or dabs, and in doing so forces someone else to fall or dab, that's a toppling penalty. You got to be in control of your bike. And when you're falling off it, you're not in control of your bike. Next, we have bike interference penalties. And this is another one that's very confusing. This one's often called obstruction. And it's one of the ones that we see the most conversation about what is obstruction and what is not. So, bike interference penalty is assessed when a player who is not in possession of the ball actively impedes the movement of an opposing player who's not in possession of the ball. So, a key thing here is that if you have the ball, you can't really commit a bike interference penalty, right? And if you're playing defense against someone and you're trying to restrict their movement and they have the ball, that's not bike interference either. That's just good defense. What we're looking at is a player without the ball impeding the movement of another player without the ball. So a penalty is not assessed if the player occupying their own space when stationary or is moving at a predictable or constant speed when taking their offensive or defensive position on the court. So this is really important because screens are technically legal, right? But what we're looking for in screens is that the player who is screening is stationary. And they have been for some time. They haven't just slammed on the brakes to become stationary. Also, they can set a screen if they're moving consistently in one movement without changing their speed or direction. But as soon as they turn or slow down or speed up to block another player, that is also going to be a bike interference penalty because you remember, we got to look for that sudden change of speed and direction. Now, one of the examples where there's a bit of like an exception to this rule is, when the ball goes into the corner and you take like a wide line to block an opponent from getting to the ball before you, and then you swoop in and get it. If you're within 10 feet and you're trying to safely gain possession of the ball and no one has it at the moment, it's not obstruction or bike interference. You see when I'm confusing it. And we're going to look at some bike interference examples right now. So I'll start with this one here. And in this one, what I want you to do is we're going to look for Alex Vlaco, I believe, is the one who commits the bike interference. So let's check it out. Will's going to come out with the ball from Call Me Daddy. Alex Vlaco is circling in the other zone right now. He comes here. He's going to turn left, and Alex Vlaco is going to take Ace out of the play. Here it comes. Turns left. Alex Vlaco rides, blocks Ace from defending Will. And we'll watch it one more time just to make sure we got it again. But remember, he turns in to block Ace from being able to defend Will. He's using himself as a blocker to protect the ball carrier. Here it comes. Turns in, blocks Ace. Will gets a good amount of space and is able to get a shot. So that's an example of bike interference. He's using himself as an obstruction to prevent Ace from getting to Will. And there's another example here because this is one that we get asked a lot of questions about. And we'll watch it. So Ace has the ball here. Watch what shit he does. Comes in and he rides Polo off the ball there by getting in his way. And Ace is able to get a bike's length advantage. Nothing comes of it because Polo's a good defender and can steal the ball back. But just watch it again. Andrew comes in and blocks Polo from Call Me Daddy from being able to get to the ball carrier. So let's watch it one more time. So Ace has the ball. Andrew comes in, blocks him, and he makes some space for his teammate here. He does a quick right-hand turn there, right? He's not stationary. He's turning. It's bike interference. So that's what we're looking for, that off-ball kind of obstruction of other opponents. That's bike interference. It's a really difficult one to get if you're reffing because it's both my videos are playing because you're usually watching the ball carrier, right? That's where a lot of the infractions are going to happen. But we got to be looking around the play too because bike interference is something that we see sometimes, and it's an important thing to catch. The next one we have here is the T-bone. So the T-bone is almost exactly what it sounds like, right? Imagine the letter T. So when someone's riding and their opponent comes in and hits them from the side, that's a T-bone. Or if I'm playing defense and I'm in front of them doing a great job and they come in and with the ball and just hit the side of me, that's also a T-bone. It's about whose front wheel hits the other side of their bike. The person who hits the other side of the bike, it's on them to stop. Even if that person turns in front of them and causes that contact. They're going and they're riding like this, and then he turns in front of him and hits him or her. T-bone penalty. We're going to watch the clips. It's going to make it a lot easier to see, but it can be hard when things are fast. So we're going to watch this. We've already seen this clip. We used it to discuss the advantage call, but Bruce is going to T-bone Luca here, and it's front wheel, so it's a little challenging to see, but let's watch. So Bruce comes around, he pivots. Luca has the ball and runs into the side of Luca's wheel. Classic T-bone. And we'll watch it one more time. Slower motion this time so that we can make sure we see it properly. Playback speed 0.5. Okay, drop pass. Bruce sees it. Little endo. Luca's looking up. Here he comes. Luca makes a quick move here, and Bruce runs into the side of his front wheel. T-bone penalty. And we'll watch another one here. In this one, Call Me Daddy's Alex Vlaco has a pretty vicious T-bone on ace, I believe. So let's check this out. Here he comes. Bang. Right into the back of the wheel. That's a T-bone. And that one's really quick. So we're going to watch that one in slow-mo. Oh my gosh. I'm all over the place. Sorry, guys. And we'll big screen that. And we'll drag it back. And here we go. Half speed. Here comes. Smash into the side of his bike, taking him clean off. That one is a much more vicious than the one that Bruce just committed in the other clip. This one, I'd be very inclined to give at least a minor penalty if that's the first infraction, because there's quite a bit of speed to this hit. And he takes Ace clean off his bike with this smash. So I would say this is at least a 45-second and possibly a major if there's been other T-bone infractions committed by Alex during this game. And now we're into mallet handling penalties. So this is where we're going to see calls like hooking, high sticking, and slashing. So a slashing penalty is basically when a player uses their mallet to just smash another player's mallet or body or bike, like they're using it to swing at them. Now, we're allowed to tap each other's mallets, and this is something I hear all the time, right? You can tap your opponent's mallet, that's fine. So what I look for as a ref to make sure it's not overzealous, they're not doing too much with their mallet, is I look at the shoulder. So if you check me out here, if I'm doing this with my elbow, that's a tap. That's a mallet tap, right? Only my elbow is moving. There's barely any motion in my shoulder. I could, I guess, do this. That's only one joint too. That's probably not a slash. But if I'm winding up with my shoulder and my elbow and coming down on the mallet or swinging up on the mallet like I'm shooting, that's when I'm much more inclined to call a slash because of that wind up, right? All of a sudden, the force is a lot more than what's necessary to tap someone's mallet away. You're really whipping their mallet down with your mallet. And that, in my opinion, is a slash. I have an example of a slash here that we're going to watch. But before that, I just want to talk a bit about high sticking. Now, I encourage you to go read the rules on high sticking. It's quite extensive. There's lots of different corner cases and situations. But the basics of that rule is if a player put their mallet or hand above their shoulders, so they're raising their mallet up like this, or the nearest opponent's shoulders, because some of us are different than other people, right? Shorter and taller. And you deem as the ref that it was unsafe, call that penalty. Okay. If their windup is so big it's close to someone's face, call it. Their follow through on their shot is so big it's close to someone's face, call it. They raise their mallet up and whack the ball down and someone's right underneath them and you think that was unsafe, even if they don't touch, you can call a penalty because it's no longer safe. If they make contact with another player while high sticking, so their follow through goes through and hits someone in the shoulder or head or whatever, that's automatically a minor or maybe a major penalty depending on the situation, right? It's up to us to assess how dangerous that play was, but they should come off the court because they've actually hit someone with their mallet at this point. Let's watch this slashing example here. I'll make a biggie screen and watch Luka's mallet. So the key thing I want you to look at here is, we'll watch it one more time, is that Luka has the ball and he's trying to kill a penalty right now. So what he's trying to do here is kind of waste time because his teammate has just received a penalty. And he's able to squish the ball in behind his front wheel. And then he takes his mallet and just starts swinging it wildly back at Ace behind him. There's no even ball near there. It's purely just to whack him, it seems like. In my opinion, this is a major penalty because this is not a bike pull play. This is just, I don't know, trying to hit someone with a mallet. Let's watch it again. And he pins the ball behind the boards here and then just gives a couple whacks to Ace's leg. That's not necessary, right? So that would be, in my opinion, a major penalty for slashing because you're hitting someone with your mallet purposefully. But you can also mallet slash on someone else's mallet, right? If you just are too, like you're just putting too much power into that tap or you're winding up too much, we can also call it on a mallet too, not just the body or the bike. Hooking. Okay. Another one that has been talked about a lot. So hooking is now illegal. And hooking is when we use our mallet and the head of the mallet, we hook it onto the opponent's bike or body or mallet, and we're using it to kind of stop them from being able to play, right? It takes away their movement. So what we're really looking for is that head on the hook. Remember, you can tap their mallet up, but as soon as we hook that head in and pull back, we're hooking them, and that's a penalty. So we're going to watch a little play here that would show us what that looks like. And you'll see green helmet here, hooks Zach once, twice, causes him to dab, takes the ball, and he actually scores it, which is kind of cool. But he definitely hooked Zach twice there beforehand. And remember, we're looking for how his mallet head is used to grab a hold of that shaft and pull backwards on it. Here it comes. So he grabs a hold of it, pulls back, grabs a hold, pulls back again. He's hooking and pulling on that mallet. So a hooking mallet, a penalty should be assessed there. It's very simple, but kind of complicated because you are allowed still to tap the mallet and play the mallet if you're going for the ball, but we just can't be hooking with the mallet anymore. That's the new rule set, and that's how we're going to play at the qualifier. Next, we have bodily contact penalties. So these are ones where it's body on body. So the first one is extension. Now, extension is when you go to take that hit and your elbow's out like this, or you're using your forearm to push off or just to protect the ball or your body. If you're going to be checking someone making contact, you need to have that arm tucked in and your elbow almost stitched to the side of your body and you're leaning over. The arm comes up, that's an extension penalty. So we're going to watch a clip of that, of course. Okay, and so Ace comes in and extends onto well. Now, this is a very subtle one. This probably doesn't get called in a game, but if we watch it back again in slow motion, I want you to see how Ace's arm comes up during the hit to add just a little bit extra force to his hit. So here it comes. He's coming in. He's seen lefty Will. Ace comes across. Pushes him on the shoulder and extends the arm to add a little extra force. So that would be an extension penalty, although it is a pretty mild version of it. You'll see much more egregious ones if you keep reffing long enough. Next, we have charging. So charging is when a player doesn't initiate contact that we call high and even. So contact needs to be shoulder to shoulder. You can't come push someone in the back or push them in the butt or their ribs or whatever. It needs to be up onto their shoulder or the outside of their arm. It needs to be high and even. So what we're going to watch here is we're going to see Polo comes around the net and he puts an elbow into, I believe it's Forrest's kidneys. And it's just not high and even in the slightest. His elbow's out too. It could possibly be extension. So here comes Polo. Oh, it's ace, sorry. Boom, elbow right to the kidneys. And that is not a clean high and even hit. So that's going to be called either charging or extension. Boom, right to the kidney with the elbow. And that's what we're looking for. Not high and even, not shoulder to shoulder. Oof, dirty hit. Okay. Next, we have two more bodily contact penalties, and they are handlebar contact and steering arm. And these are two that often get confused, and they're really difficult to officiate because it's challenging to know who initiated the handlebar contact with who when both handlebars hit each other, which is often how it happens. But I found a good example. So a handlebar contact penalty is assessed when a player initiates contact with an opposing player's handlebar. So let's watch this play and see what happens. You're going to see Bruce commit what I think is a handlebar contact penalty. And I'm going to put it in. What's our playback speed here? Normal. Let's put it in 0.5 just so we can make sure we see it well. So Alex Lacko has the ball. Gets a little tap on it. Lefty Will is going to come and grab the ball. Here he is. And Bruce, oh no, it's Forrest, rides through and really clips his handlebars. Let's watch that again. So the boards are right here. Will comes to collect the ball, and Forrest, you can see the handlebars flick. And it's obvious Forrest that initiates. He's going in super hot, not even really trying to slow down and clipping Will's handlebars. Now, Will is a really good rider and doesn't fall down. And I think that's why the ref didn't call anything here, but it definitely is handlebar contact. Let's watch that one more time. So the key here is that Forrest is initiating contact with Will's handlebars. Bang. And you see the whole thing flex. And if Will wasn't such a good rider, he'd have gone down there for sure. Handlebar contact penalty, probably a minor, although Forrest was going pretty fast there. Maybe a ball turnover, maybe a minor penalty. Let's check out steering arm. And steering arm is one of those ones that is, again, really difficult to call. So you're not actually allowed to make contact, similar to charging. It has to be high and even. But if it's the person's arm they're steering with and you make contact anywhere below that shoulder, like the elbow, the forearm, I mean, it's a very dangerous play because it could turn their bars, right? And at speed, that can cause them to crash. So we got to watch out for steering arms. And as a lefty, personally, steering arm is crazy because oftentimes I get called for steering arm when it's also my steering arm that was in the, anyways, but it's about who initiates the contact. So we're going to watch an example of a steering arm here. It's a pretty mild steering arm. There actually wasn't in this game a very good example, but there's definitely some steering arm contact that we're going to see. So let's take a look at it. So here comes, oh, I forget what this player's name is. This Call Me Daddy player has the ball. Ace comes in and he's going to tap that elbow. And look at how that makes the bars turn. Let's watch it one more time. The key is he taps that elbow, the steering arm, his left arm. Ace comes in. This elbow right here is the one that gets tapped. And he taps it and makes the bars go all wibbly wobbly. That's a steering arm infraction. Now, if that Call Me Daddy player had gone down, I'm sure it would have been called. But again, he's a strong rider and stays up, and therefore doesn't always get the call, which is fine. But as refs, we should be making the call regardless if someone dabs or not. Okay, so that kind of gets to the end of my penalties pieces. And I want to say that there are a lot more different types of infractions. And some of these rules, I definitely took some liberties to make them a little bit more simple for us to understand easily. So I encourage you to actually read the rules if you're interested and get a good understanding of what they say. And then watch games and try to pick out moments where you think someone's committed one of those infractions, because that's how you're going to get better. But I thought I'd end with some fun. What's the call section? So I have two plays I want us to review, and they're going to be what's the call on this play? And these are ones that I have my opinions on, but they're pretty 50-50. So I wouldn't stress anyone for having a difference of opinion than me. So let's watch this one first. Okay, and I'm just going to slow it down to make it a little bit easier to see, because when things are happening fast, it can be hard. So let's watch. And Will and Forrest bump, and then they bump again, and they both go over. And they get up and they're not happy about the situation right here. That much is obvious. Andrew has to get in and stop the fight. Looks like Forrest is definitely blowing a kiss there. Exactly, exacerbating the problem. But let's watch it one more time. So Forrest and Polo bump first, and then they bump again much harder. And I don't know. Let's see what you think. It could be a charge if it's not high and even. Could be extension if we see an arm come up. All these things. Could be a no call. The first bump happens here, and then the second bump happens here. And it looks pretty high and even, but of course, there's probably some handlebar contact. I think the handlebars get caught up. So, what do you think the call is in this situation? Feel free to watch it back and replay. So, the cool thing about this one is we actually have a different angle of this call that is pretty enlightening, in my opinion. I don't think I'd make the right call if all I had was this first angle. So, we watch, and they go over. So, what I want you to look at is the MC over here. He kind of gets it, but look at Polo, the Call Me Daddy player's left pedal. During the play, his pedal strikes, causing him to lose balance, and that's actually what initiates the crash as his bike kind of skips to the right and then swerves left into Forest. It was kind of a freak accident, the whole thing, which is interesting because both players are so angry about it after. So here we go. Watch this left pedal. Boom, there's the strike. He unclips, causes him to crash in. We'll watch it one more time. Well, let's start at the start. He goes through that straight there. Boom, causes to go. So, in my opinion, it's actually a toppling penalty because Polo is completely out of control of his bike, and his pedal strikes, his bike rear wheel hops to the right, causing him to swerve to the left and take out Forrest as he's like unclipped and like in the process of possibly dabbing or maybe recovering. But anyways, that loss of control is what causes Forrest to dab and himself to dab. And I think that's a toppling penalty in my opinion. Now, what happens after the play? The ref needs to step in and do something about this. So in this situation, I think Forrest actually received a 30-second penalty. Now, whether or not he initiated the contact or not, he definitely was definitely stirring the pot after the play. But it's definitely a good idea for Joe to come in and talk to both teams about what just occurred because we don't want to see any fights in the game. And we're going to do one more. What's the call? All right. So in this one, Andrew gets the ball and he's on a breakaway. And what you see is Alex trying to catch up and it causes a big crash. So I'm curious what you think the call might be here. So Andrew's on the breakaway, little touch, bang. And Alex goes flying, and you can tell he's not feeling very good after that. Not feeling very good at all. So let's watch that one more time. This time I'm going to slow it down so we can see the contact and how it occurs. So here goes Andrew. He comes in. Andrew swerves to the right a little bit, causes the contact with that front wheel, and Alex gets wiped out. So think about that. Maybe rewatch it one more time if you want to. What do you think the call is there? In my opinion, and what occurs in the game is this is a no call. So Andrew's on the breakaway, and it's on Alec to control his bike. And since Andrew's in front of the play, he's allowed to turn left or right. And Alex needs to be able to brake and control his bike in the situation. Now he gets a little too close and taps the wheel and flips over because he's just way so far forward. But that's not on Andrew, the control player. Alex needs to control that. So I would say this is a no call situation. But it does suck for Alex because he definitely took a hard hit there and he subs immediately off. But sometimes these kinds of things happen in every sport, right? There are crashes, there are injuries that are no one's fault. It can just be a freak thing. So that's the end of my little presentation. I encourage you to go back through to read the rules, to look at that little handout that's on the NAH website, and to ref some games of this year's Northside Qualifier. It's a great practice ground for getting some experience, and we need some more experienced refs in our region. So I really encourage you to go out there, make a few mistakes, and that's okay. Just thanks for watching this, and I'll see you at the qualifier. Bye for now.